Hey folks, welcome to Biomassed tonight. We have a very special guest and we'll get to that here shortly, but we are here for episode 75 and our interesting fun science fact of the night. It takes 75 liters of water to produce one 250 milliliter glass of beer. True statement, Google it if you dare. So moving on, by the way, that's like my homage to The Martian. Absolutely fantastic movie, and they will quote unquote science the shit out of stuff on that show. So without further ado, what we'd like to do is kind of move right on into some intros and kind of get into the meat of the show tonight. We will start at the top of the list and work our way down as usual, putting Zell on the spot. Zell, you're first.
I'm Sarai Zell. I was on the CPM. I'm a co-host here on the show and an editor on the blog.
Yep. And he's the person we like to refer to as the Gandalf of Mumble. We'll let you figure that one out later. Let's see, Bait.
Hey everybody, what's up? My name is Aiwha Bait. I'm a member of the Incorruptibles Corporation and a writer for the Biomassed blog.
And reportedly old enough to drink.
Supposedly.
Pokey.
Hey, I'm Pokey Draven from OSG Planetary Operations, co-host here on the show, writer for the blog, and glad to be here.
And a surprisingly talented artist and Photoshop troll. And for our special guest tonight, CCP Rattati. He's trying to figure out how to hit the PTT button right now.
I was coughing.
See?
Hello. I am CCP Rattati, lead developer on Darth 514, and happy to be here.
Thank you very much. We do appreciate you coming on the show tonight. We have poking a little fun at you with that one, but he is coming to us live from Shanghai, from the Shanghai studios, and we'll chat a little bit about the recent patch or release rather, in Darth 514, the Hotfix FoxFour. So without further ado, folks, we're going to hop into the show. We normally do a CPM update, as you all know, when we have a CPM on board, or we usually just poke fun at Zell, which we're kind of all game for anyway. But that being said, because we do have CCP Rattati on, and it's pretty rare that we get a chance to chat with him on the air, we would like to probably move right into some news about Darth 514. And here recently we've had the Hotfix FoxFour go live for the player base to enjoy or rage about. I don't think there's been a whole lot of raging. I think there's been a lot of generally positive feedbacks, at least the comments that I've seen here recently have been fairly positive about the majority of the hotfix. And they touched quite a few different things. There's a little bit of AV and vehicle work that went in there. There's definitely some buffs to some of the assault suits. So that's pretty fun for the classic first-person shooter Slayer players. And there's a few other things on the odds and ends that made its way into the hotfix. And what I'd like to do now is kind of open it up very briefly to CCP Rattati to let us know what he thought about the recent Hotfix FoxFour and what he's looking for the player base to see in there.
Yep. We put quite a lot of effort into FoxFour, which is my favorite name yet. And I hope everyone's seen FoxFour fall on his face. That is hilariously my favorite, probably, picture on the internet ever. Yes, so we wanted really much to try to hit the shield issue with infantry. It's been something that I've been bombarded with and lambasted for quite some time. CCP hates shield, CCP hates Caldaria, etc., etc. And what spurred us or me into action really was that the CPM2 came forth with a really strong proposal, well thought out. They collected feedback on the forums, and they just delivered a really solid document of good improvements that were not kind of controversial at all, and they had a good philosophy behind it. It was something that I wanted to do myself anyway, to go through the kind of shield recharge delays, etc., in a system, just like we did with repair rates and the movement stuff that we did last time. So when they handed that to me on a silver platter, I reviewed it. We went over it a couple of times, and really, I think we just shifted as it was, and that was kind of a high point for me on that. should be for the CPM2 to be able to kind of affect change that meaningfully, that fast, and in the right way. And I haven't heard anyone complain about the kind of how it was done, more like the results are Caldari now overpowered or not, etc. That's another topic, but how it was done is something that I was really happy with.
Yeah, I would, having watched that a little bit here and there when the CPM were garnering some feedback from the community, that was a very interesting process. I've seen it done before, and it's rare that we got to see a kind of a direct flash to bang from the feedback to what was happening in the game. So it'll be an interesting test model, I think, going forward. Now, generally, I think the changes, correct me if I'm wrong, were predominantly in increasing the recharge rates for the shields. And I think you dropped the CPU cost of the regulators pretty significantly as well to try to encourage folks to run additional regulators, perhaps. Is that about right?
Yep. I didn't want to decrease the fitting cost of extenders due to fear of dual tanking, but I did want to give a better option in the low slots of shield suits. So yeah, spot on.
Yeah, good. Well, and like I said, I've heard some interesting feedback about it. Generally, I would say you are correct that this is one of the changes that people, I think, mostly like, or at least quite a few people agreed that it needed to happen. And as you said, time will tell whether it is, overpower. It's kind of the old school of, do you overwhelm something, underwhelm it, or just whelm it? And, we'll see how this one goes, but we really do appreciate you taking the CPM's feedback and then directly dropping that one in the game. I think the other big blocks that we wanted to talk about on this one, you had quite a few changes to kind of the base racial weapons, or at least some of the base racial weapons, particularly. I think you did it through the use of bonuses to the assault suits. Is that accurate? And a little bit of tweaking here and there on some of the numbers. I think that's probably the next, one of the other major ones. We'll save the AV vehicle stuff for the last, just so we can hear Zell scream, by the way.
Yeah. So through consistent buffing for probably a year, the AR family is still underpowered. And, it's underpowered and underused, and it basically had nothing going for it. Yes, some people swear by the TAR compared to the Scrambler, but that's pretty much, I think, it's either experts with it, they're just great with tactical snipers or that kind of gameplay, or people who look at the stats and think that they're the same, therefore the weapons are the same, and they just aren't at all. So the Scrambler rifle has probably 3x to 4x better stats than stats as in KDR or equivalent to the TAR, and the AR is pretty much the worst rifle in all of them. If you look at the kills per spawn ratio, and the burst isn't terrible in itself. There's a lot of bad things about it. The sight is not great for a burst rifle, and its KDR or KSR is a little bit better than the AR, but it's just not used at all. And one of the things that I was trying to do with the Galante buff particularly was to get also people to try it, because there's sometimes a weapon can be perceived as underpowered, no one uses it, and therefore it becomes underpowered by kind of proxy or theory. So I really wanted to see if it could shine on a Galante, and people want to pick it up. They hear that it's powerful and they go and pick it up and they try it, and then I can see some better usage stats, because right now no one is just using these weapons. I want to see them in action. If we end up having overbuffed some of them, or it's not the right way to do it on the Galante itself, then we can just generalize the buff back to the rifle itself, decrease it on the assault suit itself. So we don't have to. Nothing's made of stone here or hewn into stone. I think this was a smart idea to do, and I stand by it completely. People are saying that the breach didn't need a buff. It certainly did. After we nerfed it, or we didn't nerf it a lot, 2 hotfixes ago probably, We just decreased the clip size, but that just threw it out the window. Everyone stopped using it. It was amazing. We didn't touch the damage or DPS or range or anything, but just by decreasing the clip, people perceived it as terrible and threw it out. So we'll see, and I can't wait to look at the stats. I like collecting 1, 2, 3 weeks of data before I kind of comment on it, but this will be fun.
No, I think I really like that approach of trying to put something out there and then actually like watching for some quantitative feedback. Now, I do have one question I've been dying to ask you if we could ever get you in a forum like this. Specifically with the ARs. I acknowledge that, even anecdotally, it was easy to see that the ARs weren't used a lot, I think, in general, before the Hotfix FoxFour patch. But one of the questions I was just kind of wanting to ask is, do you think that's more due to like the significant imbalance in the ranges of the rifles from, the AR all the way up through the rail rifle and with the scrambler and combat rifle in between? That seems like the most significant detractor to the AR from anybody that I've talked to, because if you are inside of its optimal, it did work pretty good before the rate of fire buff, at least with the for the Galente assault. So I just kind of wonder if you could comment on that one generally.
Yep, absolutely. That's why we reduced the range of all the assault family as well. The assault scrambler, we pulled them all a little bit back, and if you and I think people have been commenting on this is, okay, why is the breach this DPS but the range is similar to the rail rifle, etc. Like, is it supposed to be a mimic rail rifle first and then an assault rifle, or is it supposed to be an assault rifle and then a mimic rail rifle? Like, this stuff never was kind of set in stone either, and we've been experimenting with it. The first time we went through the rifles, I went with it's primarily a mimic. So it kind of copies more of the statistics from the weapon it's trying to be or similar to be. So the range and the DPS were supposed to be similar. Now I'm making the decision to pull all assault versions back into kind of a holistic group that's closer in range and kind of has more shared statistics. We'll see how that goes. One of the complaints was that the assault rail rifle could kill at a lot of distance as well. So we're pulling that a bit back, and then we'll see what's the favorite weapon for each suit, what's the favorite weapon for the range. And I think people are kind of getting into, okay, if I like being at range, then this is the optimal solution. But if I'm going in CQC or if I'm going into a map that has primarily close combat or etc., then I'll pick my right weapon. I never liked that people were running Galente ARs for everything or whatever they were doing. So I want tactical choice, and I want you to change your fit if you need to. There's 2 small kind of nerfs as well. They shouldn't be the scrambler rifle. We all knew the problem with the scrambler was the charge shot plus just infinite spam. So I just tweaked the cost of the charge so you could spam less. And by spamming, I meant literally, I playtested it a couple of afternoons. I put my controller in front of me and I tried to tap it as fast as I could humanly possible, just without regard to aim. And just to kind of establish the kind of highest rate you could actually get. And then I kind of started tuning it down, and I couldn't get it to overheat when I did that. So I just tuned this charge shot to make you have to think about the shots you fire afterwards. You couldn't just do it as fast as you could, but right now you can charge and then spam. Just do it as a kind of at a natural rhythm, and you won't overheat. But you won't be able to do it like people are doing. I think that was just everything it needed to that's all that was necessary to kind of fix the scrambler rifle. We did put in, because people like to run around also with the charged, around corners, and kind of kept that mobility and that option open. I didn't want to take that away. There's an option to just say you can't hold the charge. I wanted to hold the charge, but I wanted to reduce the mobility. So I just reduced the speed, just like a forge gun, by a couple of, I think 20%. You can feel it, but it's not terrible, and I think I think it'll be fine. The assault scrambler, I just increased the heat so you couldn't empty the clip without having problems. I think that's enough for now.
I'm glad that you finally admitted the assault scrambler was insanely crazy.
To me, it had its drawbacks. I don't like it at all. I can't use it, and it isn't crazy in the stats. It's fine. People are using it and people are killing it with it, but the AR is still by far the best one. Scrambler's close second, so we'll see.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very good breakdown of, sort of the thought process behind a lot of that. And by the way, Pokey's face is about to explode when you say the numbers for the scrambler. Okay, Pokey, what he means is the numbers in game, not the actual stats of the weapon.
Yeah, okay, I'll concede to that.
One of the general questions that this actually kind of sprung out. It's a good follow up. Is you talked a lot about sort of the methodology for wanting tactical choice. And one of the things I've at least personally raged on is I do like the idea that you're bringing the ranges of the weapons together a little bit, because I think that is one of the, like I said, anecdotally, probably one of the things that leads to disparity in the weapon usage. But I'm a little surprised that it just feels like the game over time is becoming shorter and shorter and shorter ranged, which starts to actually eliminate tactical choices. Do you get a feeling that we're kind of at that point, or do you think you're pretty comfortable with sort of how it feels right now? Because it seems like everything's CQC. Pretty much inside of 30 meters, that's really, I think, where most of the combat occurs.
Yeah, but I don't play a lot of shooters that aren't, as a matter of fact. I don't feel that it's changed. It may have, but I remember HMG fests and grenade spam in close quarters from the dawn of time in Dust. You tell me. I haven't actually monitored that, and it's an interesting statistic to see if ranges have been coming down, and something that I can definitely like. Overall, we have the kills and the ranges that they are, but I haven't been looking at kind of long-term trends on average range per kill. So that's an interesting point.
Yeah, like I said, that's a personal observation, but I think most of us in the channel have been messing around for quite a while. Before we kind of pounce on and move on, I was kind of wondering if Pokey, Bait, or Zell, if you guys had any questions for Rattati so far, reference some of the things we've been talking about with Hotfix FoxFour.
Well, my big question that I wanted to ask is that
Here it comes.
No, I'm not going there yet. We'll go there later. You said later. I'll get my later. No, my question here is that I got a certain impression, and I suppose if you weren't paying close enough attention, others might have gotten this impression, and I understand that I was incorrect. So I want to ask Rattati, between the time that there was this, there was the announcement of the hotfix and the description of what was changing in the spreadsheet, and then when there was the announcement that it was live, there was just a post that linked back to the same spreadsheet and didn't say anything else. And so, to me at least, it didn't seem like there had been much of a feedback phase, and that changes had happened from announcement to release, and I am told that I was incorrect. So I wanted to know what changed through the feedback process.
Sure. This, just to start off, when we started doing this, we hadn't the hotfixes and the kind of regular balancing. We hadn't done it in this way for a long time. We'd never kind of put everything on the table, then talked for a couple of weeks, tracked the changes, okay, discussed, said, and then you had this kind of history of, this is a proposal, this is what came back, and this is the final result. We don't have the middle column in this in Hotfix FoxFour. I don't think we actually had it for the last one either. We just have a lot of history now that I'm working with, and the kind of proposals are way better, in my opinion, because usually you can just see it by by the feedback that people aren't like, no, it should be 7, it should be 8, etc. It's more like, yeah, let's see how this rolls out, because we have the experience, I have the experience, the community has the experience, and we're just putting out better original, or kind of the first draft is better, higher quality, in my opinion. So you won't see the changes because frankly, it's a lot of effort to kind of track the different versions every time. So what I do is I definitely read the feedback wherever it's coming from, Skype or directly on the thread. I note it down and I make a decision, and then I change the number. If a lot of people are asking, well, it should be probably 64 in the clip, not 82, and I go and check, well, 64, yeah, that's probably right. It should be like 5 clips. Okay, all right, fine, 64 it is. Like that's the feedback loop. On the actual changes, there were definitely the original intent was 25% rate of fire, and people changed my mind to 50%, so 3% per level. Which is probably in hindsight very good, and happy to have kind of listened to that. I didn't quite kind of, when I was thinking about it, I tried the 25% and it felt fine to me, but then someone said, well, what about the crins? And then I started worrying again, and I went back and ended up at 50%. And we'll see if that is going to be too much. So I'm probably being kicked out of the room. So so we'll see what we'll talk about AV later. Sorry. I think I got five more minutes, but I can't even remember if I changed more things. There were definitely some typos in it that I got corrected on. Some of them were, I had to double check that whether were the typos that I'd written or the actual number that just had been a typo. But I can't remember another thing than that percentage. But a lot of the sidearm changes came straight out of the feedback thread, or the what do you want for Christmas thread that I put out before. And that was kind of also some of the things that, like, finally I just went ahead and did them. And a lot of them, they didn't need a lot of discussion. And if that's kind of, if I'm overestimating the quality of the proposal, then fine. But I didn't see a lot of hardcore evidence about a number that I needed to change, except the hotly debated 25 meters.
That's that is a good way to describe it. Hotly debated. We will have to let Zell off the hook on this one. We're not going to get into the vehicle AV stuff, since since that alone would create some tears there, but it'd be a fun discussion. And we do acknowledge you only got a couple minutes left. So I do have to ask, and it's one of those things that we've seen here recently. There's been kind of a community push for some information on the future of Dust. I won't get into asking you any specifics, but I'm just curious if you've seen the hashtag PortDust514 campaign that's been going on. And I think a couple of CCP folks have sort of thrown a retweet out there, or at least they acknowledged it. And I was kind of curious if you've been following it.
Of course. I've like 999 notifications in my Twitter, and I'm happy to see it. I'm happy that people are enthusiastic enough to actually try to change our kind of, or have affect change in a positive way. I'm really happy to see that it's in this kind of how can I say it? It's not negative. Like, it's not harping on you never talk to us, etc., etc. It's more like, come on, we want this universe. We want to make a change. We want to keep this alive. And I'm really happy to see it, and we all are aware of it. I can guarantee you that. I especially like Catmerk's latest edition, and I've shown my support by liking these beautiful pictures, and people are definitely taking notice. I can that's for sure. But that Catmerk picture. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's the 16th chapel in a completely different way, I think.
That was one of those very interesting little pictures that a gaming community could probably come up with. But that was pretty hot. I really appreciate you at least taking a stab at answering that one. We had a lot of people sweating bullets, so it's one of those things that it's sort of the elephant in the room, and we have to ask about. We would probably not be doing anybody in the community, from a player side, any justice if we didn't at least ask you about it. So I guess with your last couple of minutes, if you could let us know, what do you think your plans for Dust 514 are in the next couple of months? Are there anything specifically you want to touch in game, or maybe sort of the next thing you got your eye on to take a whack at for in-game tuning or balance?
So the invaders have left. So I can touch a little bit on AV if we still are interested.
By invaders, do you mean like the
people trying to take
the commissar?
Yeah, the invaders are my my co-employees trying to take my meeting room away. So they've left. They found another room. So let's do a couple of minutes on AV. So Zell, go ahead.
So I understand that there's a notion that there's this notion that the normal swarms are meant to become just for anti-tank, and that then the door is open for I'm just gonna let you know I skipped the whole how did you do this, because I'm not even gonna ask. And that the door was open for the assault swarms to potentially at someday be a longer range version that would be more geared towards anti-dropship. But my question is if that is indeed a goal or a possibility, why would you take away the second? There's only 2 AV weapons that can hit a dropship reliably, and one of them now can't.
So hyperbole aside, because they can.
Well played.
There's loads of things wrong with the swarm launcher and ADS and dropships. So what I've seen over the past few weeks or a few months is that dropships are just, in the hands of greatly skilled people, it's probably fantastic. And it's very difficult to nerf the class by looking at their kind of achievements, because they do things that no other human being can do on dropship. I usually self-destruct every single time, so I use them as kind of one-trip taxis. I just jump out wherever I want to land, and then that's it. I have like 999 Orm dropships that I use for that, because I've never landed a dropship. So respectfully, there's people who just are amazing at dropships, and then there's the 99% that aren't. And people don't like going to dropship because there's a lot of issues with the swarm launcher. You don't see the people shooting at you. You have the invisible swarm problem. And in my opinion, there needs to be a balance. And I'd like for swarm launchers, and that's just what I probably been aiming at for a long time, is they are easy to use. They are accessible to anyone. You don't need anything else except your militia fit, even though it sucks. But at least you scare people away, maybe. Especially people who aren't used to being hit by swarms. It feels scary if you're a new player in a tank. It's free AV, and it's less skilled than, for example, speccing into a breach forge and sitting around trying to hit ADSs. All that said, I'd like the swarm to be an area denial right now, not so that swarms just close down a big part of the battlefield. And 25 meters was a very humble decrease, in my opinion. And that's that. I also increased the kind of way you can kill tanks now. So if you sneak up on them and shoot them in the back with the swarm, you should be able to kill them even more or more easily than you used to. So even if dropships are your kind of main arc enemy, then you are able to kill the other
I
Thanks.
absolutely have to ask you: Have
Punch
you
it in the ass.
have you in fact ran up and hit a tank in the ass, like with your fist? I have to ask.
I have not done that. No.
You've thought about it though, right? I'm sure you have.
That's why I put the picture on. I wasn't even sure that people knew about this. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I've always aimed.
It's always been there. I just
it should
painted
be.
a red line around it.
People should know, yes. And I mean, I've like with the thing is I felt like your weak point buff was actually almost like a relative additional nerf to swarms compared to forges, because I can hit the back of a tank reliably with a forge. The thing is they're not easier to use, and they're not swarms are not better. They're because you can't aim them, and they're slow, and so I can't point a swarm at the weak point of a tank.
By positioning, you can. That's definitely possible.
Then how come it doesn't ever happen to me, man? I'm sad now.
You suck. I don't know.
Word.
Oh man, damn.
And I think we assumed this much, but can you just clarify? The weak point was only the damage was only increased on the weak point for tanks, not dropships, correct?
Yep, correct. For now.
I'd really love to see some vehicle stats, because I imagine the dropships are going to be very quickly back to being the most powerful thing on the field, if they weren't already to begin with.
Hey, Rattati, I absolutely have to ask you this. So when Zell was a card-carrying member of CPM1, and he was deeply ingrained in the entire communication process, was he as annoying about AV to you then as he is to us for the last year and a half?
Absolutely.
Yes, for sure.
Okay, I just want to make sure I was tracking that, or if that was something special he was laying out for you right now.
No, this is all stuff that I've heard and listened to before. We did buff the swarm a lot. We did try to get the right balance, and we made it at the cost completely of dropships, and now we're kind of pulling it a little bit back. We'll see. We're going to monitor the situation. The other problem with the dropship is the annoying thing that I tried to figure out: why you can't kill the pilot when you kill the vehicle, which is super annoying. You don't get the gratification of actually getting the kill when you do it. That is an unsolved mystery as of yet. I've been looking into code, and we can't reliably find the difference between the HAV settings and the dropship settings. So again, legacy code, terrible.
If you can fix it so that dropships properly explode, I will forgive you for your swarm nerfs. That's how big I want that.
Hey man, check this out. If he could fix some shit with legacy code, I've got a long list for him before he gets to that one.
Yeah, there's a few. So yeah.
Hey, would you mind briefly if I hit you up with a couple good questions that I'm getting over Twitter for you? There's quite a few people that are pinging me about stuff, and if you got a minute, I'd like to go ahead and knock out a couple of those. Would that be okay?
Sure. And then let's do 2 minutes of that, and then I say what is that I'd like to look at, and then I'm out.
Perfect. Okay. All right. I'm going to take these in pretty rapid fire order. There's been some questions about some additional BPOs or maybe some different setups for Apex suits, like i.e. just different Apex suits coming out. Do you see any of that happening in the future?
No, not at this point.
Yeah, I guess with Apex suits being able to kind of get modified, it sort of don't really need that, I guess. Let's see. Okay. Do you ever see a way that we can somehow legitimately pay for or send a contract up for Eve pilots to drop OBs in Molden Heath? Any kind of cross play between, in terms of at least a ISK part between, Dust and Eve?
No.
Yep, I kind of figured that one as well. Let's see. I'm going to assume that by that answer that we're probably not going to get the Eve and Dust Corp chats to sync up any better than they are now. Is that about right?
Yes, that is definitely about right.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm literally just kind of scanning through these real quick. And apparently I've got 3 or 4 people that want more pink things, like literally just more stuff pink.
Pink all the things.
And Zell was not one of them until now. So for the record, for all you people that wanted pink shit, I did ask CCP Rattati about getting pink stuff.
So one thing I would have loved was a weapon attachment system, or not a weapon attachment, to split the color of the guns into a skin and a model.
Ooh.
I think it's completely unfeasible, but it's something that I really wanted at some point. Until then, we're going to get these kind of handcrafted new skins in the vein that we've been looking at. I don't think there's anything not available in pink right now.
Okay. I am not
actually-
I'm not
you
a Quaif
actually-
guy, so I have no idea.
Maybe sidearms?
You actually can't get your war barge in Quaif yet.
Oh,
No.
Jesus Christ.
I'm not seeing that.
Okay. All right. Last one on this one. This has periodically come up here and there. Are we ever going to see any kind of? You spoke about weapon attachments, but if not modding the weapons or modules for the weapons, do you think we'll ever be able to get some of the assault rifles or some of the rifles that we have with actual sights on them, like, instead of iron sights?
This is a restriction by the PS3. We can't separate the models without heavy rework. And right now, as you probably know, that the memory on the PS3 is full of content. We cannot add new 3D meshes into the game, such as a different tank or a different kind of. So basically, if it has a different three-dimensional shape, we can't add it into the game. That also means scopes and sights on weapons.
Okay, so the only thing you could probably come up with then is like you would have to basically take the exact take the burst AR and then give it the same stats as the actual basic assault rifle variant, and that's the closest you could come, as opposed to actually like changing the model itself. Is that about right?
Yeah. We can create the rifles that people are talking about, like a burst rail rifle. Like, that's possible.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think it was more along the lines of like all the weapons with iron sights, figuring out a way to give them something similar to like the A-Scar, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Don't think I haven't thought it every day.
Okay, brother. All right, so let's go ahead and turn this one over to you. If you want to kick off a little bit on some of the things you're looking at for the upcoming future for Dust 514.
Yep. So we left. So what happened with the Hotfix FoxFour was the Christmas list thread. I had to split it into two things, and it's probably better to explain this right now. The simplest changes you can do are numbers only. That's where the number is not reflected in a description of the skill, for example, or somewhere in the description or the name says this thing deals 7 damage or something. If it's completely only on the stat side, that can be done with a lead time of like 3 days. Any change like that. The second more difficult one is when it's still a stat change, but it's reflected in a text description somewhere else. That means the text description, when I change it, it has to go through kind of a relocalized. It has to go through. You have to rearrange the numbers and ship it again. That takes more time and is more expensive. The third one is to basically change code, which means a true hotfix, true client change, like a proper point release 1.3. So that's the difference. What I have been doing is every time I change a number that is reflected in the text description, I've been removing them. You may have noticed that there are some weapons now that say an advanced weapon says deals moderately more damage, and the prototype thing says deals significantly more damage. That is to replace the actual values that were in the text. So slowly but surely, we're trying to get to the place where 1 and 2 are the same thing, and the code changes still remain in the client. So what I did for FoxFour was I did only number 1 changes and categorized all the rest of them into either 2 or 3. I always planned to clean that up and share it, and this is probably a good opportunity to do so. But the next hotfix would be then more of the same, but things that I just left out because they were more annoying. That could be literally anything. But I really, really, really want to add to that the racially skinned HAVs. It would be an experiment that would be interesting and kind of exciting at the same time.
That would be pretty interesting if you can come through that one. So, for the record, as long as you can make one of them incredibly shiny and golden, like the whole thing.
And the other one needs to be duct tape.
I know at least one guy who'll buy the gold one.
I hope so. It would be. I think it's going to be fun if we can get around to it. Of course, more trading is always something that I'm trying to get. I need to do another kind of refund, a BPO and skin with all the Sever suits and some other things that or tribute suits that I can't remember right now, and keep adding to the trading list. Factional warfare is probably the next one on my list to put as tradable. But I do have, and it's better to say that right now, I do have an aversion to trading all the things simply because I don't have like a requirement rank on stuff. I'm just an old-fashioned person in that sense. I don't want people who haven't earned something to wear it. Like that's just a very core principle. I don't want faction warfare skins to be traded. And I probably think the community is very split on this. Some are like, but it's even, everything's be tradable. And some are, well, you have to earn it. And that's not going to change for right now, unless there's an overwhelming support in some sort.
Okay. Well, I think that covers quite a bit. We really appreciate you hopping on and giving us a rundown on some of the things for Hotfix FoxFour, and again indulging us a little bit as we went a little back and forth on some of these items. And I do appreciate you sharing some of your thoughts about things you want to tackle for the upcoming 3 months. So any saved rounds on your part, any last parting shots or NDA breaking material or news that you want to break, or any shocking sort of one-liners you want to leave before you head out and actually continue to do some stuff there in the Shanghai studios?
Just that we are working on 1.3, and that's going to be interesting. And I'm not gonna do any sneak preview on that, but it's going to be interesting. It's not going to be what people expect necessarily right now, but it's going to be fairly cool if I say my mind on that. It's
okay.
Interesting, but yeah, it could piss people off.
Frame rates on the PS4 working out pretty good.
Nice.
Hey, you never know. I had to give it a shot.
Okay. All right. Happy to be here, man. But I have to go.
All right. Thank you.
All right. See you later. Bye.
All right, folks. That was CCP Rattati that was here with us live, who's kind of given us quite a bit of dope about his thought process in terms of how he looks at basically sort of game design. If you think about it, we're talking about a specific game with Dust 514, but really what you got there is an interesting take on how does it really work if you're a developer or really a designer for a game, and you're looking at the theory behind your game and the plan behind your game and how you want it to actually be displayed on the screen for the players. So that was a pretty fun little chat there. Got a little technical at a couple points. Got a little sensitive. A couple of people got a little sensitive about some things. But that was a really, really good discussion. So, folks, we have another guest, Darth Carbonite, one of the CPM2 members, who's here trying to check up on us, make sure we don't do anything evil or mean to CCP Rattati. But I'd like to kind of open it up. Pokey, Bait, Darth, Zell, anything? What do you guys think? Anything we didn't ask him you wanted to ask him?
One thing I probably wanted to touch on that just didn't have time for was I know he said he's experimenting a bit with the AR in terms of giving it a pretty substantial buff with the Galente Assault bonus and getting people to try it because it is a pretty powerful buff. My concern is that the AR is still underperforming when used in a non-assault suit or maybe even non-commando suit. So, I mean, if you put the AR on a logistics suit, it's going to perform much less than, say, like a combat rifle on a logistics suit. So, I think I would have preferred if they had buffed the base a bit, maybe like by 5%, and then given the assault a 10%. So the net was about the same, but it kind of help out the base gun a bit because it is still kind of underperforming compared to other weapons right now.
I think that's actually a pretty good point. I hadn't thought about that. It's when you really look beyond the assault role. I guess the theory is, how do you optimize certain weapons for certain racial types? Now, the interesting part about that is when you go down that road, you start asking questions like, okay, should there be certain weapons optimized for heavies or sentinels or scouts, light frame suits, other medium frames, aka logistic suits, things like that? I'm actually kind of a fan of that, of basically having a unified racial bonus that gives some mild perk to all weapons of that family, to whatever the role of the suits are. But then actually tuning the base rifle itself a little bit, or maybe the specific bonus for the assault suit, it would be fine. So that's an interesting thought on how that could work. And it's, as he said, time will tell. It's take about 2 or 3 weeks of data, and we'll see what it comes out with.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, like, so you need to get people to actually try it so you can collect more solid data on it because it's severely underused. So I think this will, at the very least, provide some good points in the graph you can work with.
Yeah, I'll still hold to the fact that I think really the range is the number one, was the number one detractor to the AR ultimately, when you compare it to the other weapons. I mean, like I said, if you're inside of its optimal, it works just fine. I mean, it actually works quite well. It just it just gets outclassed in the range category. Bait, what are your thoughts, man?
I haven't played enough of the hotfix to have any real question. I'm just waiting to see what the magsec numbers are when he hopefully releases those in about a month or so. I'm very curious to see how that will be performing. I feel like it was one of the more underused sidearms before the hotfix, and I'm hoping it will be less underused here in about a month or so.
Yeah, it'd be pretty interesting. I was very much waiting for the magsec to come out, for a long time. And when it actually came out, I was pretty disappointed with its general performance. And I think it seems like it might be in a better place now. Let's see, Jill, any thoughts? Anything else you wanted to get out there?
I got my beef out there. I got my my AV thing. And we'll see. I think time will prove me right.
It might very well. You never know. Okay. Well, I think that actually covered a whole lot of material tonight, and I did want to transition over to a couple things real quick. So we have a couple things coming up called Halloween. Should be kind of interesting. So I've got to ask, Zell, what are you going to Halloween as?
A computer nerd hiding in my condo playing games while everyone else is outside.
I would normally say you're being typecast, but I think you're struggling against a reality there you can't escape. Okay, Pokey.
Well, a lesser known fact is that my family actually owns a haunted house that we do during the Halloween season. So I'll be acting in that as an actor. It's actually a pretty big thing. People pay to come in and they go through the haunted house and get scared. So I believe this year I'm actually playing a clown of all things. Kind of a drunken, old, worn-out thespian of a clown. So it'll be interesting. We'll see how it plays out.
I figured you'd go for like the Stephen King It clown thing. Is this more of a I'm a crying on the inside kind of clown guy?
I have issues with makeup on my skin, so it probably won't be as excessive as the Stephen King It style. But we'll figure something out.
Well played. Okay. All right. Bait, how about you?
Yeah, people in my neighborhood don't take kindly to almost adults running around and asking for candy, so I'll probably sit on my front porch and tell people to go away.
What are you, like 19?
16.
Close enough. Okay. Let's see. Darth isn't going to speak, or is he?
I could speak if you want.
What are you going to go to Halloween as?
Something Star Wars. probably.
I never would have guessed that, by the way.
Yeah, shocker.
So we had a long drawn out like gladiator match over that this weekend. It's a long weekend for me here, so it's like a 4-day weekend. So we got all of our Halloween stuff done. So we started out with an X-Force thing for the family. Clearly, I would be Deadpool, then I could have Kid Pool, and the wife would be Domino. That would work out well. But we didn't think that would go over too well in the neighborhood. So we transitioned over to actually a Star Wars theme. And then my idea of a Boba Pool or a Dead Fett, that didn't go over well either. So we actually, the 6-year-olds settled it. We're all going as different Doctor Who's. So I drew the classic Doctor number 4, the Tom Baker, with the long scarf and the hat, and so we spent all day hooking that up. He drew the David Tennant one because he loves Chucks. He loves Chucks and he wears the right glasses. And my wife will be doing the 9th Doctor, the Chris Eccleston Doctor. She'll just obviously have to do a gender swap there. But it actually worked out pretty good. So we will be going as the Whovians. And in fact, I think my wife's making a little TARDIS, candy bucket for the kid. So should work out pretty well. And on a separate note, I do highly recommend 2 things. One, if you're ever in the Savannah, Georgia area, the restaurant Alligator Soul, absolutely ridiculous good. You will need a reservation. You'll probably drop 2 bills at it, but it's well worth it. And the last thing is The Martian. Great movie. I'm not a huge Matt Damon fan, but that movie was absolutely spot on. One of the best I've seen since, I don't know, Mad Max. And it's probably going to be one of the better ones I've seen until the Deadpool movie comes out. Just saying.
You'd put Mad Max above the Martian movie?
2 very different kinds of movies.
I know they're 2 very different kinds of movies, but you said the greatest thing since, and I think The Martian
mean I said
beats
it was better. I just said it was the best movie I've seen since then. I would say generally The Martian is probably a better overall movie, but that does not take away from the fact that Mad Max is just absolutely fun to watch.
What do you have against Matt Damon?
I don't have anything against him, I guess. I mean, other than the fact that he probably... Well, never mind. He's a good enough actor. It's okay. It's all good. All right, folks, I think we're pretty much wrapping it up on this one tonight, so we're going to go ahead and knock in some shout-outs. Bait, let's start with you, brother.
I actually have a couple of shout-outs. I would like to start off and give a brief shout-out to all the guys at the Neocom who cut together that audio. You can find that on the neocom.com. Should be like the first post on their front page for the hashtag PortDust514 campaign headed up by Ripley Riley. While I didn't agree with some of the with the way that it went about, I feel like a few more people could have been put in. Had some other changes been made, it would have been better, but it was still good overall. I was quite pleased with it. So shout out to Proto and his team over there. Shout out to Gene Archduke for one of the more creative responses I've seen to this to the whole campaign. On the forums, I think that was in the latest thread about that in the general discussions. What else? A couple of shoutouts to some bands I've been listening to that I've been feeling. Bella Fleck and Abigail Washburn put out an album, like a folky banjo album. It's pretty good. And shout out to Yonder Mountain String Band's new album. It came out back in July, but I missed it somehow.
Have you ever listened to Bella Fleck and the Flecktones?
No, actually I haven't. No.
Yeah, I actually used to. I've seen them live several times. They're pretty
really?
good.
Are
Yeah.
they good? I'll have to give that a listen. But the Yonder Mountain String Band album is Black Sheep. It's pretty good. Progressive folk music.
Alrighty, that's good stuff, man. By the way, in case you guys missed it, Foo Fighters were in Austin here recently. It was an incredible show. Okay, let's see, Darth. You want to say anything, brother? Any shout-outs?
Yeah, shout out to Rattati for coming on. That was pretty awesome. And to the Battlefront beta, which is ending tomorrow. I think it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, how'd you like that, by the way?
I liked it a lot. No comparison to Dust, obviously. Nothing near in terms of progressing, but it's good for a quick match or two.
Good deal. Good deal. I was kind of looking for that. I haven't tried that one yet. I was looking for that. I'm actually in a beta for a different game right now. I'm just kind of playing around with it, but very, very curious to see how that thing ends up looking when it hits mainstream on PS4. Okay, Pokey.
Yeah, I've actually been doing the Battlefield front beta as well. It's pretty cool. It's actually turned out a lot better than I was expecting. So I'm not so sure if it's going to be a long term heavy replayability like some other games, but it's certainly like Darth said, good for a few matches. So yeah, the beta is a lot of fun. You should give it a shot. It's very, very good looking. Graphics are fantastic. But for a shout out, probably shout out again, like Bates said, to the Neocon. What they put together was very, very cool. We have a link up on the website. You should go check them out. It's a pretty touching recording of a lot of players and their thoughts about Dust and asking for the port. So shout out to them for putting that together, and shout out to everyone who submitted audio clips. It was very cool, and I was glad that it happened. So thanks, guys.
Alrighty, Zell.
I'm just gonna give my shout out to Rattati for coming on again.
Okay. All right.
And
Well,
I didn't have to request it. He's just like, I want to come on the show. And I'm like, awesome. Yes. It's very cool.
No, and just for the record, I'm absolutely getting pummeled on Twitter right now. Like, want to know why we didn't take like blunt instruments to him to find out if there was an actual port or some other form of a game getting cooked somewhere. And the short answer is I can't really do that over Skype because it's too easy for somebody to just like leave. So that, and we did want to respect the fact that he came on. So for everybody out there who's asking me what if we could have pressed him a little bit harder. Normally, just as a rule of thumb, when you're conducting an interview that could become an interrogation, and ultimately you're trying to seek information that somebody is not necessarily in the mood to give you,
or able to give.
It generally works better when you don't put yourself in a position where they can walk away. So that just a thought. So anyway, we do appreciate it. And yes, in fact, he could say if he wanted to, or if he was allowed to, but he can't. So that's all right. But I do appreciate for everybody up on Twitter that were helping me out with a bunch of questions for Rattati. I really do. And we also definitely appreciate CCP Rattati's time coming on. So one of the things we'll probably end up working on is trying to get everybody's favorite GM, aka CCP Archduke, on one day. That should be interesting. So without further ado, folks, we're going to go ahead and land the plane. So we're going to bring episode 75 to a close. And if anybody has any catchy names for this episode other than CCP Rattati is back again, I personally like Rat Snake, aka Metal Gear Solid Dust 514 version. That's just my plan.
I actually have the image about 90% done.
Outstanding. You're catching on, brother. So we are going to sign off for tonight, guys. It's a little bit of a short show, but it was kind of action-packed. So thanks very much, and you guys keep at it. And as always, give us your feedback. Please visit the site at biomassed.com or biomassed.net if you should choose that option as well. You can find us on Twitter at Jason Larison, or at OCD Trekkie for Zell, or at PokeDraven for PokeDraven. And hey, Bait, what's your Twitter handle?
It's at BryceG_71, I think.
Close enough. Just spam a bunch of people named Bryce on Twitter. You'll find one of the right ones.
There you go.
Or you'll increase your social network. Either one probably works well. All right, folks. So, as we say every week, good night and good luck.
Meryl.